I've been living here for 35 years, and I do love Red Hook. In the fall, it was kind of cold. I saw a couple of people and a truck back there on Bay Street, and I was walking my dog. I was kind of curious, and they had a table set up in the field. So I said, let me go over here and find out what's really going on. They were testing for lead poison. I was explaining to them that the ball field also has dust particles coming, into my apartment.
It seems like it should have been on the city's radar for a while that this land had lead in it. The dust could absolutely be blowing off of the field and be inhaled by people who are living in public housing. Probably not so much now. It's incredibly overgrown, and I think the city has done this as a way of keeping the soil in place. But in the past few years, after Hurricane Sandy probably exposed a lot of this leaded soil, people could certainly have been breathing it in.
I'm not a chemist. I'm not an engineer. But if it's lead in a ball field, whatever was on those fields had to trickle down into these buildings and the grass, because you know how chemical, and when it rains and the chemicals just wash into all types of areas, not only the sewer, but I'm sure it washes right across the street.
Well, it was poor people, black people, Puerto Ricans. Government never said anything. Now that you got yuppies, which are the rich kids, now they're worried about it. But before, they didn't care anything about it.
As far as I'm concerned, it's environmental racism. This is a very toxic area, and most of the people out here has respiratory diseases like asthma, especially the kids.
The city discovered that there was lead in the ball fields in 2012, and they paved over some of the worst parts, threw down new topsoil in other areas, and kind of resodded the fields, hoping that would alleviate everything. So everything was sort of above board, according to the Parks Department. But in 2014, the State Department of Environmental Conservation requested that the EPA, which is a federal agency, do a sweep of all of the former smelting facility sites in the state. And the EPA did a more rigorous test of the ball fields, which showed these elevated levels of lead very close to the surface. After discovering that, the EPA is compelling the city to clean this up.
We just started an environmental group called the Village of Red Hook. We test the air, we test the soil, and we test the water.
We formed this group, and one of the things we're assessing is not only the Superfund areas in South Brooklyn, but also the capacity of the human beings in Red Hook. A lot of times the residents, including myself, are overlooked.
You have multiple levels of government all the way up to the top, in charge of public housing, and in spite of people making their best efforts on the ground, these problems often go unresolved. And I've been in meetings and I've seen grown people, especially older people, break down, sometimes crying, basically because they've been told for decades, sometimes generations, to sit down and be quiet, and people are getting tired of that.
We got kids on the street. We have a lot of serious issues here, especially violence in Red Hook. Now that they have closed the baseball field, these kids have nowhere and nothing to do and nowhere to go. That kept them out of trouble. That kept them looking forward something to do.
Folks in the Red Hook houses might be feeling it from a couple sides because, you had this complaint when the EPA came in August that the agency didn't do enough outreach in the houses to get people there.
The EPA conducted a meeting in Red Hook, and when I got there, I didn't recognize any residents. I didn't feel like they had done enough outreach in regards to putting the flyers where most residents look. I asked how many people were actually there from Red Hook, and I believe only about 5 people raised their hand. The EPA invited me to help them with outreach, but it works both ways. We don't want to be brought in just for our ideas while everybody else is getting paid.
Second and third field, yeah, they're gonna fix it. So it's gonna be closed for at least 2 years. But we really need this field in Red Hook.